Good morning. Ooh, that's loud. My name is Miriam Goldberg. I'm a software engineer at GigaPan Systems. And it is my pleasure to introduce to you Brian Yamamoto and Kim Bridges. Brian and Kim were both here in Pittsburgh last year as fellows of the Fine Outreach for Science program, where they were trained in using the GigaPan system for documenting science. Brian Yamamoto is an associate professor of biological science at the Kauai Community College. He's presently fulfilling a Title III grant to develop curriculum for infusion of Hawaiian values into science courses in order to improve the success of Native Hawaiians in the field of science. Kim Bridges is a botany professor at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. His research interests include ethnobotany, scientific visualization and communication, sustainability, and long-term monitoring of rare and endangered species in remote areas. So I'm very pleased to introduce them to you to speak now. And just a little bookkeeping, because we ran late, we're going to go until 11:30, and then there's no talk after this in this room, so we'll all go back to Rango, sorry, to hear Brian Fay. Great. I'm Mike Fay, sorry.
Technology. Should do. Good morning and aloha. This is really out of my element. Question first for the day. How many of you are educators or teachers? Good group. Okay. This morning, my colleague, Kim Bridges, and I would like to try and discuss applications of GigaPan technology, especially in our particular classrooms. And so this is what today's talk is centered around. We all came as fine fellows to the GigaPan era. And basically, we're given a charge, and this charge was to find out how we were going to use GigaPan technology. After we quickly learned how to take the pictures and basically how to stitch them together and post them, what were you going to do with these pictures? How are they going to become part of the repertoire of for us, education? Well, first off, I wanted to start out with mahalo, thank you, because what we've been given is a terrific tool. And this is only made possible because of the Fine Foundation and the people from the Create Lab that allowed us this vision and allow us to be able to use this kind of technology in order for our students and our colleagues and really everyone to be able to participate in this particular technological wonder. We are biologists and we live in Hawaii. I'm located on the island of Kauai, and Kim's located on Oahu, and we study rare and endangered plants. We've been looking at this idea of using technology a long time ago. We used still photography like everyone else, the old slide projectors and everything else that we started with in terms of education. And we were always perplexed with worrying about context. You know, taking a look at a picture of a plant within where it lives and its surroundings, and then to worry about the detail that's necessary for biology to understand the specifics of the plant itself, and how you can mirror or bring these two things together. Well, GigaPan technology provides this particular tool. And so this is one of the images that I've taken at Maui Botanical Garden, and this is a field trip site for me as well. The importance of this particular image is that it can give you the detail that's necessary to be able to understand specifically an individual plant. You can zoom in on any one plant in this image and find out, floral structure. You can actually look at pollinators and so forth at the same time and understand the leaf morphology and everything you need as a botanist. And then turn around and take a look at the context of the image to take a look at how big the plants are, or, how they interact with each other, and so forth within the image itself. What I found out quickly on is that students need some guidance within an image. And so this is basically the beginning of my semester. You start out with an image like this. You take a few snapshots, and you basically lead students to a particular place within the image itself. Now, what I found out early on, and this is a terrific revelation, is that I first wanted to put all the information ever possible on each of these snapshots. You know, you link them to all of the different sites, and you connect up and everything else. And what I was finding out is my students were always, yeah, more information the better. You know, get all that stuff on. And then I started wondering why. And then I started talking to them. And their answer was, well, we didn't have to do anything. You're doing it all for us. Everything was there. And I went, I'm making them passive learners. And what a terrible thing to do. And so what we found out, and what I've now learned, is that I take about 6 snapshots, and this particular image has the 6 snapshots in them, and I have some leading questions, what I want them to start looking at or what I want them to start looking up, and then I leave them there. And then I ask them to basically do an exercise of 15 images, meaning they have the first 6 to start with, and they have to find the rest. And this is a good point about using this technology in terms of the classroom. You have to basically look at trying to get your students to be as active participants in the learning process in the image as possible. Another important thing is that I include the gardener here. Her name is Tara, and she takes care of this particular garden. And it's very important to bring in a human element. One for size and scale, but more importantly that this is her pride and joy. This is what she believes in. And so she takes care of these plants. And so there's a human connection here within the image itself. We move on to applying images a different way. Now I'm trying to prepare students for a field trip. And in order for them to really not get overwhelmed at the field trip site, I want them to understand a certain number of the plant materials before we get there. So I purposely took this image at the botanical garden, and it's a new planting that they were putting in a coastal region, or they were trying to depict the coastal region. And because the plants are very well separated here and have not grown into each other, you can quickly isolate individuals and be able to, focus a student's attention. So in this particular exercise, students are given plants of interest. Each of the snapshots are only labeled, these are the plants I want you to take a look at. It's the student's job to go and do the research to find out what plants these are, what families they belong to, why are they important, what are the features they need to be able to do, and to be able to identify them when we actually take this field trip, to be ready for that particular location. The last of these images is a garden setting. And this is a setting that I took in my father-in-law's backyard. And this was a personal GigaPan that I wanted to record for my family. And it was so that my children and maybe someday in the future their children will remember or will know this person as a way of recording family history. As soon as I processed the image and started looking at it, I've realized the complexity of the image. He's gathered over 50 plants in the back of his yard, and this is his family garden. And what it is really a cultural snapshot of the area, of the kinds of plants that would be used. So in my ethnobotany class, this becomes a very useful tool. And at this point, my students are advanced enough that they're basically told, look at this image and go and identify the plants. And they have to come up with the sequence of plants they want to identify, the kinds of importance these plants play with the culture. And I've also included a personal interview with Grandpa Hashizume with the information that they have. And so by learning a little bit about him, try to figure out why he chose these particular plants within the garden that he has. And so this whole ethnobotanical application becomes available to them. Students search and classify the garden on their own and basically use the interview in making the botanical and cultural connections that are necessary. The interesting thing is that I didn't notice this, but a student pointed out, toward the center of the image, you see some red flowers. And if you zoom in, which GigaPan allows you to do, you'll find out these are poinsettias. And poinsettias in Hawaii only flower around December. So I have a time frame reference, even though there's nothing there for them. And so the students go, oh, you must have been there during Christmas. And so we actually, they figured out at least what time of the year this picture was taken, without that even have to be given.
It's a little strange to have a sort of a team effort here, but it's a fun way to do it because we take on different facets of the problem. While Brian lives on Kauai and has easy access to this, I had to fly over to do the next bit of work. We like to take our students on field trips, of course. We have to get them out, and while going to Hawaii sounds like it's a fairly docile thing to do, we have one of the wettest spots on the planet, and we like to take our students up to that wet spot, very close to it. Now picture, this is a little mental exercise for you. Picture the problems of you going out on a field trip into a remote area where it's guaranteed to rain while you're there. Are we going to be happy campers? This is going to be either the best experience of your life or the worst experience. How could it be the worst experience? You're going to be wet, you're going to be tired, and you're too far from the instructor to hear what's going on. If you've ever gone on a botanical field trip, you know what happens. The instructor picks something, says to the two people who can hear what it is and why it's the most exciting thing in the world, and pass it down the line. The last person says, "What's this?" and doesn't know whether to throw it away or keep it. Right? Okay, so that's where we're going to go. So we treat the panoramic images as what I call bookends for these field experiences, because we want to, in fact, make field experiences exciting for the students. So we print out these GigaPans and make wall murals, put them in the hall, and then we get the students over a period of many days to look at these, learn the species, get familiar with what they're going to see. So this sets expectations, it sets a knowledge base, and everybody's going to be up to about the same level of knowledge before we do it. And this is a picture from that, near that wettest spot. So we've discussed the picture, then we go out and we observe, we talk to the students, but in fact much of the active part of the field trip is not dependent on the instructor at this point. Students, in fact, will get ahead of the instructor, go down the trail and say, "I know this place. This is something I know all about." And then when we get back, we review that same image. We gather together and look at it again. We can either look at it on the wall or we can get online and look at it through the interface. And as instructors, you know, here's where the learning takes place. It wasn't really when we were out on the trail. That was adding to our information. It's when we talk about it again, we go into depth and say, was this in fact representative of what you actually saw? Was there change? These are all the review stages, and this is where the real learning takes place. So what we've tried to do is take what could possibly have been the worst academic setting, cold, wet, tired, wanting to get back, wondering where a restroom is, and we make it into perhaps one of the most valuable, I'll remember it forever kinds of experiences. So what we found is we can make huge prints, and there's an example that you can see posted down on a poster of one of these large prints, and they're very inexpensive if you go to your commercial sign makers. And so we are liberally posting these around the building. And here's an example of what the hallway looks like now. This is about a 12-foot wide picture of a valley on Kauai, a famous scenic spot. And there are 5 distinct lessons that people teach the students when they walk by and stop to look at it, depending on which faculty member is there. Because what we try to do is not just make pretty pictures, but we're making stories of what you will learn in the classroom that's adjacent to where the print is, or what research is going on in the laboratory that's adjacent. So each of these is a location-relevant picture that helps the students.
We have also decided that because these are inexpensive and GigaPan technology is new, that we should spread it around the world. And so we've been using these as protocol gifts, taking them with us as gifts to give other people so that they can basically use them and display them and basically get the same wonder that we get out of these particular images or the generation of questions. This particular protocol gift was brought to the island of Ishigaki, and it's a very small island off just slightly off the coast of Taiwan. And basically it's part of Okinawa. And Kauai and Ishigaki have a sister island relationship. And at this particular island fair, this is the 10th anniversary of that relationship. And there's a student exchange that takes place between Ishigaki and Kauai. And actually students go back and forth learning about each other's nature and culture. And so we asked our students that were going to this particular fair, what did you want to bring, or what kind of image do we want to take to Ishigaki for this particular endeavor? And they came out with, we studied a lot about Okinawa, and we learned that they put a prime emphasis about their natural environment. And we wanted to show them that we also had a natural environment, and we believe that nature is that important as well. So we chose this particular GigaPan, and so we had this GigaPan brought to the opening ceremony. And so this particular image is at the opening ceremony of the students that went over to Ishigaki for this particular fair.
Well, getting students involved in actually taking pictures is important. And we can think of classroom applications, but if you are very liberal on letting people use your equipment, they, as you know, find new applications. So one of the ones that surprised me a little bit was one of our Hawaiian students who not only went out and taught a bunch of her high school Hawaiian friends how to use the GigaPan, but she took it along when she went to Koho'olave, an island that has very limited access. It was a bombing target, and they're trying to restore it. And as part of the restoration, they come across some very interesting things. This is one of two adze quarries, so ancient Hawaiians built this, and it's a very rare archaeological site. And because she's Hawaiian and was able to get access, they allowed her to go into the middle of this area and do a 360-degree panorama. And this is documenting the location of these ancient artifacts. So there are adzes out there that can be easily seen when you zoom in with the GigaPan technology. And they're afraid that if somebody comes in and goes over and picks one up, they won't know how to replace it. And so this is a kind of historical documentation. It was her idea to do this. It was her idea to go out and get access and do this fairly rare thing. Now they want them to, the students who to go out there to do GigaPans to study all the other aspects of the island and its restoration. Sometimes graduate students come up with innovative ideas. This is one where we have community gardens, and a number of different people from different cultural groups grow the vegetables and flowers that they need that are appropriate to their culture. These are very large gardens. It's free gardening, but in small spaces. So we did a GigaPan, and this is just a small piece of it. You can see the actual one in the poster session. But we then took these to the community garden associations. The gardeners have to meet once a month to make sure that everybody's following policy. We put these out and asked people who are gardeners, but not at this garden, to identify what's growing there. What are the things that people grow? And traditionally, an ethnobotanist would do this by leading people through the actual garden. But conditions change in the garden, and so this student said, this is a fixed image, so everybody has the same opportunity to see it under the same weather conditions, same lighting conditions and such. So this is a walk in the woods kind of analysis, but it's been standardized, And incidentally, the record holder is somebody who was able to identify 80 different plants in this garden. And we're also able to ask a lot of other questions, such as who's the best gardener, who's the worst gardener, things like that. So we've discovered a lot of things by trying to not only do things ourselves, but by letting other people use the equipment and just seeing what they come up with. We're really just scratching the surface. But we can come to some conclusions. I think perhaps the most important is the last one down there. If you let the students try doing things, they're going to find things that we don't think about, that they'll apply it in new and novel ways, and we should learn from that. That was our message for you. What we wanted to do is not take all of our time. Are we okay in time?
You're great. We have about 6 minutes.
Okay. We wanted to interact with you guys.
Do you use the GigaPan website for that? Or you have a different platform because basically you upload the snapshots and the
We're using the gigapan.org website. We're not doing our own.
So you erase the snapshots afterwards for the future students to be able to do that?
I tell them not to take snapshots, but then they would have to go and basically, index and get the information and then write to me or send their own pictures that represent these particular plants. So what I found out is that the more snapshots I take, the more we lead them toward doing something. So I'm trying to get them started correctly. So I give them a few snapshots, but after that, try to make them, giving them freedom to search as much as possible. And when they get to images where there are no snapshot at all, they're actually better papers, because what happens is that you have no duplications. Every semester, all the students that come through approach each picture a different way because they have a different background. And normally one of the most interesting questions that come up is, how am I going to do this? I can't identify all these plants. I don't know what it is. I don't recognize this plant. One interesting thing is, remember the garden picture? We show that to a group of students. Maybe they identify 15 at most. And one of the easiest comments that came back, what the most interesting comments was, I wish my grandmother was here, because she would know many more. And so we tell them, if this is the case and this is how you find information, show other pictures as image and learn from that as well. So what they're doing is they get the one word, oh, this may be this, and then go do the Google searching and the research. And then they find out more information.
Can you tell us more about the large images that you printed? How were those printed? What's the technology?
I was going down the street and saw the local copy store, and they were saying you could make an advertising banner, and it was like 3 by 5 feet for $50. And I went in and said, can you do pictures? And they said, oh, yeah, sure. And so I print 150 DPI on vinyl. It's waterproof and doesn't fade they guarantee it for 5 years, outdoors. And for those of you who make regular scientific posters, it cuts the cost from $100 typically to $50. So it's even cheaper, because this outdoor banner business is huge right now. And so they are subsidizing us. So I've never printed a poster, no matter how big, and I make them really big, for more than $200. And they last. So your local copy store. Yes?
How do students report to you the location of a plant within an image? Is there a way to put coordinates, a grid somehow on the image where you could identify a specific place?
You can put snapshots. The software allows you to go in and zoom in and locate a place, and you can then take a picture of that. The coordinates then are remembered, so that when you click on a snapshot, you go back right to that point. So we can do that.
But when your students are saying, well, I found these 20 plants in an image, how do you know that they've identified the correct plant in the right place?
With all of the times we've been doing this, we have an extensive list of all that we could actually find within the image. And we're basically looking at that information and collecting and checking off, okay, they made this list, they found the right ones, and so forth. And we're very surprised if they find something brand new that's not on the list. And then we'll go back to them and ask them, show us this. And so they'll go zeroing in, and they know where they left this particular image. So sorry, we've been told that Ila said that that's the last question, and please get everybody back to the other room. So we'll be lunchtime, anybody, anytime, so no problem. Thank you.